Hello, everybody. Fucking shit.
Yeah, welcome to the Hyper-Realists.
Yeah. So anyway, Channel Zero. Fucking.
What? So, man, what's the name of the guy that was being from the wiki that I said was like, it's whatever. Thanks for pointing out a thing, and then started acting like an asshole in between the recording sessions.
Imperial Invective, I think his name is.
I think it was Matt Pat. I think that was what we were going with.
Oh, Matt. Yeah, sorry, you're right, Matt Pat.
Yeah.
We have to repeat everything we did in that botched attempt at recording. So, Matt Pat is funny. So yeah, okay, go continue.
But no, he started just going off the rails and saying that we aren't actually interested in helping people better their stories because we don't contact the authors usually.
Yeah.
And it's like, well, we're trying to make, I don't know, the 6,000 subscribers on Undercooked Analysis better authors, not the people who have already put their published stories out there. And then the even more listeners who listen on the podcast. So he was just being arrogant and assuming a bunch of stuff, and I don't know why he felt the need to be an asshole.
So you're redacting what you said in the previous episode.
Okay. Retracting. You are retracting the statement.
No, we established
first, and I've stayed silent long enough. Stop saying that.
Retracting. And you can play bass for retracting.
He has data expunged his opinions. But yes, so
no, I think that was foolish. But what are you going to do?
I guess we have like our sort of we're sort of like one of those television dramas now, where each episode is a self-contained story, and yet there's an overarching plot.
Kind of like
not Channel Zero in any way. But I was going to say, the thing is, we had that discussion where that dude brought up, saying that we don't, on Undercooked Analysis, which is another podcast for anybody who doesn't know, go look it up. Undercooked Analysis. It's recommended. He said that they don't help creators, and they don't, care about creators. And the evidence for that was, oh, well, you don't tell creators before you read their story on your analysis podcast. Like, you don't contact the creator first and say, hey, we're going to be reading your story. Is that cool? If we analyze it. And
we could. I mean, we've already had like a pretty big to do on Twitter that if people really want to go look that up, they can. I think it really boils down to this: UCA and its kind of sister podcasts look at stuff that's been posted and published and then talk about it.
Right.
And certain moderators delete things if they don't like it.
Yeah.
Or if it doesn't
I just wanted to clarify, since Dead Palette said about, the show not helping creators, I wanted to sort of clarify what that statement was coming from, is the idea.
Sure.
But yeah. So anyway, Channel Zero Candle Cove, speaking of shitting on creations, nothing better than completely changing a story, shitting it out in one haphazard episode, and then moving on to your own spin pasta, I guess, your own spin-off story for the next 5 episodes. But yeah, We've all.
I looked at the runtime, and it was like 30 minutes in, and we were on door 5, and I'm like, I'm like, this is supposed to have 6 more episodes, 5 more episodes. Come on.
So we have, to clarify for everybody listening, all 3 of us have watched the first episode of No End House, which is available on YouTube from Sci-Fi, not on illegal service by, despite what anybody may think. And we haven't expressed our thoughts about it because we wanted to wait until this recording. So none of us really knew how the others would react to it, but we all sort of probably kind of knew in our hearts how we would all react to it. But yeah.
I don't want to be disappointed in these things, but almost everything we called out happened. They did the entire fucking story in the first episode.
Right.
Probably the first 3/4 of the first episode. And there's just a bunch of you could say out of context, cool imagery that clearly a lot of thought has gone into, that has no meaning or relation to the original source material. And it's going to be 5 or 6 more episodes of just some plot that they came up with on their own and tacked on to the source material. In this case, I guess it's her dad. Spoilers, by the way.
Oh yeah, we're gonna have spoilers in this show, so
a lot of spoilers. Main character's dad died. She's hung up about it, understandably so, and now that's gonna be the thing she's fighting for a while. Also, there's a no-wind house in there somewhere. And just we have a very constant criticism, I think, in our little writer circle of unrelatable and unrealistic dialogue.
Right.
If you write some character to say and speak in a way that normal people don't speak, then it's hard for the reader to kind of relate to that. And I felt the acting and the dialogue, I guess not so much the dialogue, but how things were said in this first episode were very cringy and unrealistic. And I felt that everything was very, very forced.
What is your problem with someone probably in their 30s writing assumedly a teenager saying they're single as a Pringle? What is your problem with that? Come on now. Be realistic.
Oh, that's something
talks about fucking Pringles.
That's how your grandmother says it.
She's single as a Pringle. You know what I mean?
There's a scene where they're in the bar. Yeah, they go to a bar. Actually, just to build up to that, the main character says, "I'm a recluse. I don't want to go outside." Well, what if we went to a bar? I didn't even say that. It's like her best friend tricks her to going into a bar, and she says, "I'm having a terrible time. I'm leaving. Oh, look, a hot guy. I guess I'll just have a complete 180 of my character arc." And here I am at the bar, and in the background, her friend.
Before that, even it's just like, oh yeah, I was trying to set you up on a date, but the person was a no-show, and it's just like, don't try and set me up on a date. Oh, the opposite sex. Actually, that sounds great.
So, we might want to go, like, in order. I took notes. We might want to go through certain things, but I wanted to say, before we get too far into this, do we want to get the positives out of the way? Like you said, interesting visuals. Now, before this started, I said it sounded like, or it looked like, from the previews, it looked like they hired someone who does art installations to create, specific props and scenes, and then they wrote the story around that. Like, they came up with reasons why there were these sculptures, reasons why this existed. So, but I will say the visuals were interesting, That is a positive.
To clarify, it's a very weak positive.
Yeah.
Because you can hire any number of talented and creative people to make visuals for your TV show or your movie. That does not impress me anymore.
Right.
And I think it's impressing less people every day because it's very easy to pay scores and scores of animators to churn out whatever schmuck and schlock you're, peddling these days. Having a good story is something that we're missing. So while they are interesting visuals, that has no staying power with me. I'm kind of with DP. I have no interest in watching the second episode because, if anything, this felt actually kind of self-contained. You could kind of cut it at the end of,
pretty much.
I'm still in the no-end house. That's the story. Cool. Yeah. That was a single episode. Good job, guys. Next one.
Unlike...
go ahead. And on the topic of getting the good things out of the way,
sure.
I don't feel that it was terrible. I felt that it was TV, and I felt like it wasn't made for me, and maybe that is the biggest compliment I can give it, and the biggest insult I can give it is that this should be made for me, and it's not.
I think this reminded me very much of a show that probably would have come out after Lost premiered. And, there was like a rush to say, well, Lost has premiered and it's a big hit and it's, huge in the ratings. What can we come up with? What if a girl goes into a haunted house and she's in an alternate world? Can we spin that into a few seasons? That sort of was what it felt like to me, which, as you said, is not terrible, but it's just that idea of it felt like a something just trying to come in after other shows and other things that have already done it and much better, that type of thing. I don't know.
Let's explore this question then. Who is this made for? Who is the target demographic?
Well, it's TV 14, so
so it's for 14-year-olds. No, I think who is this for? This is for my dad and my girlfriend's dad who like sci-fi.
Okay.
And here's the thing: why then no in-house?
Yeah.
It's so fucking bizarre to me. It's just like, if you're going to go out of your way to contact these new horror people and be like, oh, look at these cool new horror stories that are cropping up, let's take those and not be faithful to them and kind of just use them as a very small launching off point. That's so bizarre to me. Like, I'll give you a wrestling analogy of something that I really like. Right now, the WWE is going out and just hiring indie talent left and right, and then really kind of developing them into stars. And they're like, no, we want you to be you because you're so cool and you've been on this indie scene for so long. We're going to snatch you up and put you in front of a big audience, and we just want you to show people something they haven't seen before. That is the right mentality. I think this mentality of let's get these small unknown stories and then just turn them into what we already make. Let's take these things and then turn them into a sci-fi show that's a sci-fi show. Like it's a sci-fi show. Like, why do that?
I guess that would be like taking some new talent and putting him up against John Cena in his first match. You're gonna help. You're gonna help just move Cena along here.
Well, they put when Sami Zayn got called up to fight John Cena, he lost, but my God, everyone fucking knew Sami Zayn's name after that. It was awesome.
True. I'd like to draw another comparison to a anime that just came out on Netflix called Neo Yokio, and it is very clearly like there's a Japanese studio handling the animation, but it was written and voiced by Americans because I don't know why it took this long, but anime is very, very popular in America right now. There's a lot of American fans of anime, so someone said, I want to make an anime, but more for Western audiences and from a Western perspective. And it's fucking blowing up. And there's
Toblerone memes everywhere, and I don't get them.
It's not too deep. It's a well-crafted show.
Not too
because
deep?
It knows.
No, we're talking about this new anime. We're not talking about No End House.
It clearly knows its audience, and it's tracking very well with its audience, and it's not disrespecting its roots, which is anime. It's like not trying to be a co-opt anime. It's just very firmly sitting in it, and. No End House is like, there's a story on the internet, but let's give it, as DP said, the sci-fi treatment. And that's just fucking stupid because people don't go to sci-fi for serious and, engaging material anymore.
I think basically... go ahead.
Oh, go ahead.
I think basically, as I've possibly said before, I'm probably repeating myself, but I know I haven't said it in this recording. It's just the idea, I think, of them, the powers that be at Sci-Fi, trying to gauge whether or not Creepypasta will draw a built-in audience. And they're basically just saying, will this story bring in enough viewers to justify the show existing just by virtue of the fact that people know the Creepypastas? And I think they're probably going to be disappointed in the long run. I think that you get a big bump when the season premieres. Like if you look at the numbers for the first one, Candle Cove, the first episode did okay, and then it petered off to pitiful results by the end. So I think when it's first announced, people are like, "Oh, I know that story," and a few people tune in, that have heard of the Creepypasta. On top of the people who are tuning in that are just, trying to see what the show's all about. And then as time goes on, people are like, I don't know.
It's such a weird experience watching this, because there was such a weird confluence of this thing not knowing what it is.
Right.
It's we're talking on the dialogue and everything. I enjoyed the dialogue. Again, I agree with Abysme. The acting was kind of weird. I wouldn't say bad. It was just kind of weird. But it's naturalistic dialogue, or an attempt at that. Sometimes it was failing. Sometimes it was actually succeeding pretty well. And that's a very creepypasta, ashcan horror thing, is that kind of attempt to have very natural dialogue. And at other points, it would really try to do a found footage kind of thing here and there. Like, not literally found footage, but it was using that kind of aesthetic. It seemed to be grasping aspects of creepypasta and then just kind of missing the point on a larger scale.
I think something you could see in Candle Cove, the first season, there was an overwhelming amount of grasping at Stephen King stories.
Oh, God.
Yeah, it was like, you could recognize certain elements as being from other things, like, oh, they have to cut through this area with this mean dog, just like Stand By Me. Oh, they have to, deal with this just like It. They have to deal with that just like, this other movie, or, book or movie or whatever they got it from. It seems like maybe this time it's going to be a grasping at things like, supernatural movies, Paranormal Activity type stuff and different things like that. I will say that I don't want to get too far ahead of myself, because as I said, I have notes here. Primarily, the top note is Dawson's Creepypasta, which is what it seemed like to me.
For this house to be over.
The thing is, I think it borrowed a lot, building on what you said about the found footage. It stole or, borrowed the video from The Ring, video appearing on the TV, and it's got these crazy symbolic things or whatever. It took, other elements from other, like I said, supernatural films like The Ring or, different things like that. And I guess that's probably what we can expect to see in this season. Whereas the first one was all like Stephen King references left and right, this will probably be a lot of, Samara and, like the lesser known things that have come out, like not The Grudge, but like there was that one Black Water or Dark Water or something like that. There's all these different elements that I could see like repeating from those types of films, and it just seems like maybe that's what we'll see repeating itself over and over in this one. I don't know.
I'd like to talk about the beginning.
The very beginning?
The very beginning.
Good.
Billions and billions.
By the way, if I could get one thing, I just wanted to make one point quickly as we start here, because this will be like something that, is an umbrella over the entire show. A lot of the dialogue was recorded afterward. It seemed like it was re-recorded, because I was watching it and I actually would go back in the video to make sure I had seen what I seen, and there were times when people were talking and their mouth wasn't moving, and things where their mouth didn't match the dialogue. So I know there was re-recording of dialogue, some sort of replacements or something like that. But yeah, so go ahead.
I want to come back to that. I do want to come back to that, but the beginning of the story, the actual creepypasta, and No End House has flaws that are very obvious, but one thing I did like about... Yeah, the original story.
Oh, yeah.
It has flaws, but there is stuff to like about it, and one of the things I like about it is its beginning, which is just, I had a friend. He did a lot of heroin, and he told me this thing, so he's probably full of shit, but I'm bored, so let's go check it out. Which is fine, because it kind of makes the reader guess, maybe I have an unreliable narrator here. And they completely wax over that in the first episode of the show. And they completely change the conceit as to, look at this person and their troubled emotional problems. And I thought that was very kind of foolish to go, to change it from someone who has someone informing them of something and that person's damaged to no, the protagonist is damaged and that you have to look through their eyes, and like it missed a really good opportunity because they could have easily just reworked their random ass story that they're doing to more align with that.
Right.
And I just felt that was a very weak choice.
It sort of took all the mystery out of it. Like when you see a supernatural commercial come on the television telling them to go to the house, you know it's going to be a supernatural house. It's like there's no question.
Well, you can't have a heroin addict in this story because, like, who in America, is dealing with heroin addiction right now? That's not a thing that's happening. That's on the rise.
Plus, it is TV-14, so.
It is TV-14. And maybe it shouldn't be. I think that this, I said this before, it has every potential to be better than the original story, because the original story has clear flaws. Mm-hmm. My thought, and I should have known this going in, but actually watching it made me realize this. Holy shit, they're supposed to be putting No In-House in the same universe as Candle Cove. That makes no sense. That makes no sense because No In-House is such a bombastic, ridiculous idea, and it's really cool. It is just this bombastic, ridiculous idea. And Candle Cove is so subtle and underplayed, and this is just such a loud concept of, like, look at this sprawling mansion that's inside this tiny little house, and it just doesn't make any sense. You have all this ridiculous, impossible space, you have these impossible circumstances, you have these creepy images, some of which I think are successful, some of which are just kind of stupid, like the I think the bus doesn't make a whole lot of sense,
Right. Well, I just added somebody to the call who just got home. This is one David King of Midnight Marinara and Undercooked Analysis. Yeah, who exactly?
What,
where, when, how?
Oh, and there he is with his loud ass microphone.
I knew it was going to happen. I tried to talk softly.
But you brought up. I was just about to add David, and I was going to wait till you had made your point about the. To clarify for everybody, David has also watched the first episode, and we were going to discuss it, and he just got here. We were discussing the part where the busts are present in the first room of the house, and that's what Dead Pallet just mentioned. And I don't know, did you want to give him a slight recap of what you said, or because I had something I wanted to roll into on that I think you all need to be here to hear.
Yeah, I think that the bus was kind of like, they have these creepy images and these cool concepts and everything. Some of them work, some of them don't. I think the bus is kind of like a really shallow idea. It's not doesn't have a whole lot of bite to it, unlike the weird kind of wooden mask guy, who I think actually kind of had an interesting scene. Like, his room was pretty cool.
Yeah, the room you're talking about, the room that looked like it was at the bottom of an old swimming pool, right?
Yeah, I believe so.
Yeah. No, that part was cool, but like the bus part, it's funny because, if in the original source material, not that it draws that heavily from the original source material, but the first room was just a bunch of cheap Halloween decorations, if I recall, right?
Yeah, it was to put you off, to make you feel like this is just going to be a cheap house, like
not
just normal decorations.
Like the entrance to the house, the stoop or whatever, had a bunch of like goofy stuff you'd pick up at Walmart, and in the show, it's like very clearly this heavily invested in production, and there's people throwing up outside and all this crazy stuff. I didn't mind the bus too much because it gave the skeptic character a chance to be like, oh, that's pretty cool, and kind of shed doubt. I thought that was okay. Yeah. My big problem is like the weird meta they're trying to do with, well, this place has permits, right? They can't just do that. And it's like, dude, we already know this is a supernatural house. Why are you stop trying to make us guess? We know. It's kind of like when we figured out the force for midi-chlorians, which is just bacteria in your blood. Like, dude, you just opened this entire mystery up to a bunch of questions that have completely deflated it. Why would you do that?
I will say for the bus room, yeah, I kind of agree that it's a little bit generic in that regard. There is something about that scene I kind of enjoy. Maybe it's the weird old-timey song that's playing in the background. The one about my meekness or whatever.
Yes, and I think the song is actually called "Ghosts Don't Walk" or something. Like that could be very on the nose, but.
I kind of liked it. I kind of liked that aspect of it because the part I actually liked in the original No End House. And now, let me clarify. I'm kind of meh about No End House in general as a story. I think it is a really neat concept. I think it was executed a little clumsily in places. But overall, what?
In a lot of places.
Okay, yeah, a lot of places. But there are things about that that stuck out to me. One of them was like when our protagonist first goes in, finds the room that's dressed in for vintage Halloween, and sees the note that says here, if you want the $500, go through this rooms. And I thought to myself, in my head, that's like walking into somewhere where you would be hearing some old hokey Halloween jazz in the background, and there's some orange and black decorations, and then you go into the next room. So to have that kind of thing was oh, okay, that's kind of cool. I actually liked that aspect of the bust room.
Now here's the thing.
Otherwise,
I just want to drop a bomb on you guys. First, the first two things I'll say, because I have notes. I'm gonna rattle my notes here.
Okay.
First, two things first to preface my point here, or to lead into my point. First of all, people walking out of the house vomiting and everything. Why do none of these people say anything about what's in the house to anyone? Because if you've exited from the house at any point, you've seen supernatural shit.
I figured there in the first room. There's that one lady who's just man, screw this, I'm getting out of here.
Yeah.
And just leaves outdoor. By the way, this house is less hardcore than the one in the original story because there were no outdoors.
Yeah, exactly. That's the thing. I have a point about that too. Being, I guess I'll address it now. They couldn't make the rooms in the house too scary because they had written in the fact that there were exit doors. So if they had made things too scary or too obviously supernatural, you wouldn't believe that anybody would have stayed in. Right. So the fact that they put in exit doors, they sabotaged their own story and couldn't put in really scary shit that was actually frightening.
Go ahead, sorry.
But the other thing is the plaque on the front of the house where it says... yeah. And you is fuck you. This house is made with brick, mortar, wood, nails, copper, and you. And it's Jesus Christ.
It's when you're thanked in the credits of a video game, and you.
Yeah, congratulations. But yeah,
would you say, Slime Beast? Would you say this house has people in it?
Most likely. This house has lots of people in it, and apparently the people have people in them because there's cannibals, I guess, supposedly.
Beware of the cannibals. That was interesting. Okay.
So I have to squat down and squeeze out a huge bomb on you guys.
This is the biggest one?
DP, I know that you're into this. They go into the room, and they see the busts, and from that moment, I knew exactly who was behind the No End House and who they will reveal as the villain by the end of the series.
Okay.
That would be one Mr.
Landis?
Yeah, that's the true villain. That's a bit meta, though. The true villain of the series is one Mr. David S. Pumpkins, because that's my head, and that's probably why they took pictures of us. They unironically have the exact premise of the David S. Pumpkins sketch, and the joke from that Saturday Night Live sketch where they say, "That's my head on the platter. Is that why they took our photo when we came in?" And you're supposed to laugh at that because what a ridiculous premise, and this woman must be an idiot.
Yeah.
But yet in the No End House show, they see their own heads and reason that they must have taken pictures of them on the way in, and it's not done as a joke, it's done unironically.
It's the flimsiest of justifications for the one, the people. Okay, so there's the one guy in there who like, hey, why are you back in town? And he says, did you ever hear of the No End House? He doesn't explain that he's there looking for it or anything like that, or that
what
he
a
has
jackass too.
That it's gonna be there. He just is there, and apparently he's a haunted house enthusiast.
That is the most ridiculous movie line ever.
I've been looking for it. I finally found it after all these years.
The exposition in that part was just kind of awkward, but I'm like, okay, whatever. Maybe this will get cleared up. It didn't. But like here he's trying to justify the busts being there as the pictures thing, and yeah, there's no way that we all know it's supernatural. We all do, but even in universe logic, you gotta wonder. Like, some people should have been like looked at him like, what are you, stupid?
Yeah, that's the most stupid thing you could ever imagine. So dumb, in fact. It's from David S. Pumpkins.
It's a little plausible. That's why I kind of liked, and I'm kind of with Brandon in this one. I actually thought that the dude in the suit with the wooden mask in the pool room, I'm gonna call it the pool room, I thought that was actually kind of a neat scene. Like, in terms of
no, David, you're confusing us now, because there was a room where people were playing pool. So do you mean that pool room or the room?
No, the wooden.
No, that's the billiards room.
We'll call it the deep end house. We'll call it the deep end.
Deep end house.
the biliarium.
By the way, when I saw the dude in the wooden mask in the suit, all I could think of was Skin Taker has used Harden.
That's super effective.
So in Candle Cove, we had the first episode, them saying, hey, do you guys remember Candle Cove? And in this one, we have in the first episode someone, have you guys heard of the No End House?
Hey guys, have you heard of Jeff the Killer?
Well, I'm guessing for season 3 or 4, it's going to be, hey, you guys want to go to Russia? I hear there's a sleep experiment you can do.
Hey guys, have you heard of Russia?
Fucking ridiculous.
Oh, man. I don't know.
No one in this was addicted to heroin, were they?
Well, here's the thing. That guy that you mentioned that's been looking for the house, he had a backpack on. He was ready for a journey.
With heroin?
Yeah, filled with heroin. And
tons of heroin.
It just has needles in the backpack, in the straps, injecting him at all moments.
So you can just hit your arm up against the backpack.
But he had a backpack. He was ready for a journey, so he knows that this is supernatural, and he's going to be in there on a journey or whatever. He could have fucking told people. He could have said. He could have.
Got inside. He said, "You guys can turn back. It's not too late." Which, a little bit too late at that point.
And cryptic. He could have said something like, I don't know what this dude's story is going to be. I assume we'll see him again, probably.
I presume just based on what we're seeing, he's already in the house. You know what I mean? Like, he's still making his way through it. He looks a little disheveled, like he's been there for a while.
He probably is like. I assume at some point we'll get the explanation where he's like, my friend who was a heroin junkie went into one of these houses. Ever since, I've been hunting them, killing them.
Ever since, I've also been a heroin junkie.
Yes. I gotta find where they keep the heroin.
Addicted to heroin.
This is another problem I have with it. Like, it's this house that just appears, and there's like this established tradition of it just appearing, and then people go to it, and then presumably people leave it. And no one's like pressing charges in our very sue-happy culture of, hey, I got mentally fucking scarred and threw up. No one privacy was invaded, and no one's like, oh, look. And sure, maybe you can't catch a supernatural house, but the authorities would be on the lookout for this shit.
There'd be missing persons cases, yeah.
Yeah, like, it doesn't make any sense when you put much detail into it.
Unless it's an inside job. How far up does this go?
Or maybe
the president.
Who are you? I'm President Pumpkins. But yeah,
his president dude, David S. Pumpkins' campaign slogan is just going to be any question.
There you go. So I know that this would irk DP, and I'm pretty sure it would irk all of us. But I think probably, especially DP, is. I think that a lot of this was told and not shown up until the fucking moment they entered the house. There was a lot of this stuff of, back when I was a kid, my mother fell into a wheat thresher. Like all this this exposition and exposition. Yeah. Have you heard about the house? The house is like this. The house is like that. And it was like, Okay, because I mean, this show did move since DP didn't watch Candle Cove and refuses to watch it for reasons we can all understand. This did move a lot faster than Candle Cove. Like, there wasn't a lot of the long, awkward silences and people staring at walls and shit. But
no, this woman Margot is just like, "Hey, guy I never met. Let me tell you about the traumatic experience I just had of losing my father." It's like. Well, to be fair to this guy, oh my God, is he going to get his dick sucked so hard?
Oh, yeah.
She's like confessing this stuff, like
right.
talking about this within like an hour of meeting him.
It's basically.
She also invited this dude back to her house because it's clearly the same pool.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
It's basically like she shook her hands, or shook his hand, and said, "How you doing? I'm Daddy Issues. How you doing?"
Shook his hand and it's like, and he's just like, what was that? It's just like, I just kind of flooded the place.
Good thing I'm sitting at the pool. But yeah.
God, you're gonna need some hip waders there to stay dry.
But another thing I don't know if you guys noticed. Speaking of the scene at the pool, where she...
Wait a second.
Uh-oh.
It's just like, I'm also a misanthrope, even though I'm out at this bar and I'm super outgoing. What?
I hate people and being around them.
Yeah.
I'm in one of the most social environments in the 21st century.
Picking up random girls.
Can we also address that? I don't know the name of the other guy, the more like skeptical guy. That he has clearly never held a beer in his life because he was holding it in like the most limp-wristed way. I wasn't the only one that noticed, right?
No, but what if that's intentional? I got the idea that this guy is like kind of a poser, like he's trying way too hard with everything.
Well, and that was one of the acting problems I had is when like he tries to kiss the main character's best friend, and her response could have just been like a very subtle no shove, not that, we're not there yet. Oh, come on, don't be like that. Haha, ew, no, to like everybody in the fucking bar. No one talks like that. Because at that point I was just thinking, oh, who's the director here? Good lord.
I really thought
some ultra beta.
I actually thought, and this, I'm not going for a joke here, I actually thought legitimately that scene was going to end with her saying, I like girls. Like I thought that was actually where it was going. Because I was like,
I mean, I actually kind of thought that was going to be the case because she was talking to when she was talking to that guy later at the pool, and she mentioned seeing the thing about the succubi and feeling that weird feeling.
Yeah, exactly.
Is this when she discovered she was lesbian?
Weird. Maybe that's something they're going to go with. I don't know.
Do you think they meant incubus and just didn't know the difference and just put in succubus or succubi at this point because they're stupid and don't do research?
I mean, I kind of hope, for their sake and for mine, that it is they meant succubi and not incubi.
Right.
I guess who will never find out? Me.
What has two thumbs up his ass and won't find out?
Double penetrating myself with him.
Okay, so
they don't call me DP for nothing.
Did you guys notice anything that might be a little bit off about when this girl tells the hot guy her backstory and goes into a flashback where she finds her father dead on the couch? Did you notice anything unsettling or strange about that flashback?
I was kind of tuning that whole portion out because the dialogue was insufferable.
Well, I would have tuned that whole portion out, but so much the dialogue is so badly done. I mean, not in terms of like the dialogue, but I can barely hear it in places. And then I'm like trying to turn the volume up, and then suddenly, it's like some loud horror drone. Did that get addressed already?
No, I didn't want to talk about that.
My biggest pet peeve with this, and like I actually have maybe a couple nicer things to say about this compared to Candle Cove.
Well, can I just say quickly, holy shit, you don't even want to hear the end of my fucking sentence.
No, not really.
Okay, let me just say this really quickly, since obviously my build-up is very bad. When they go into the flashback, she's wearing the same exact outfit, has the same hair, and she's holding the glass from the pool. Okay.
Oh.
She's still dressed the same as she was when she's sitting by the pool telling the story she's having the flashback about.
I didn't notice that. Is that What?
Yeah,
It's either intentional or they were too lazy to.
They most likely
costume her.
They most likely had the house rented and shot all the house scenes at once. Maybe, I don't know.
Maybe.
But she's in the same fucking costume.
I hope
a year
it was
prior.
Intentional. I hope it's like, because I feel like there's going to be some reality. Obviously, there's going to be some reality bending time travel nonsense in here. So I mean,
It may be. I don't know. I mean, that plus the fact that, you know, they have a lot of things they had in Candle Cove that they're repeating, like a long hallway, somebody writing on their arm in blood and shit like that. Same exact things they did in Candle Cove. So maybe it's connected, but I think it's more likely that they just fucked up.
Speaking of time travel, let's go back to the very fucking beginning of the episode where something happens that is action based, where someone's being chased without context, and then they don't fucking touch it again. And why did they do that? Because they wanted to skip to the part of the story where action happens.
Right. And it's not scary if there's no build up or explanation of, you know, like, I'm like, okay, she's being chased by somebody, but, you know, maybe she's the bad guy. You know, who knows? You don't really have any expectations.
Fuck you, who cares?
Well, you open up
Game theory.
Open up with two random, like, teenage, I don't even know what the fuck their age is supposed to be. If you open up with two people talking about how they really want to go clubbing, but one of them doesn't, you're going to lose a lot of people, because that's how freaking short attention spans people are these days.
Mm-hmm.
And that ties into, what is it? We're talking about sound design now.
Yeah, I didn't want to completely change David's topic, but I just wanted to go back before we passed, you know, that thing.
Yeah, I was going to get back to it,
but
because
you were right to bring that up, though. But yeah, so I think it's room 3 where they have the hallway, and there's a dude with the mask just laughing and then pushing a mirror, I think. And I was okay with the concept, but they make this really stupid, tropey mistake that everyone's fucking making these days of, okay, she's in a hallway. What they should do is show her looking down the hallway, and you see something way off in the distance, and it's blurry, and you can't tell what it is. And then as it gets closer, then you kind of have your music and your sound effects swell to mimic tension and dread. But instead it's, what's way down in the hallway?
Those like spidery violins come in.
Yeah, like, way too early, and then it just keeps happening. So and the scene went on for way too long, and there's no tension built up. So I'm just waiting for her to fucking walk around a guy who's clearly not going to touch her.
Right. And who was that guy? Because you said a guy in a mask, but I think you're just misinterpreting his odd face. That was he
had a really unhinged looking face. That was the point. He wasn't wearing a mask.
Okay.
Or maybe he was in the version you saw. Maybe this different. Maybe they're fucking with us.
Maybe they are.
He was a man in a chicken mask masturbating.
There you go.
Seriously.
But why was that dude supposed to be scary? I mean, it's like you're in a haunted house and you have a haunted house worker without a costume who's laughing.
He was wearing a Freddy Krueger sweater, so
it was pretty much Abysma.
It was Abysma. Maybe that's why I hate it so much.
I actually have written in my notes here, I have the horror of a fat guy. And that's pretty much it.
If you know what? If you were walking down a hall and suddenly you came around a mirror and there was Wario, wouldn't it freak you out a little bit?
Wah!
Wah!
Oh man.
But yeah, my one of my big pet peeve with it was that the music the dialogue was mixed way too quiet, and the music was way too loud, and there was too much of it, like too much of the loud droning music. Kind of didn't help make any sense of subtlety or tension. I mean, oh man, it's so frustrating to me that kept happening. And I came into this trying to be like, okay, I'm gonna give it an honest chance, you know?
Right.
I did the same. I was way more. I was probably way more hard on Candle Cove just because I really liked the source material. But with this, I don't care as much about the source material. Therefore, I'm like, okay, well, maybe there's actually room for, you know, improvement here. And I'm this isn't even a story thing. It's just the sound mixing is just not good.
Were you here when I said that some of the dialogue was redubbed?
Oh my gosh, spot the ADR?
Yeah, okay. I wasn't sure if you had joined the call yet when I said that, but yeah, there's points where people's mouths aren't moving, and things like that. So I mean, yeah, but I don't know. It's just the music to me was like maybe the first season, Candle Cove, where people, some people were talking about how it was kind of just like slow and boring and everything. Maybe they thought it would spice it up to have something screeching in your ear constantly. Like, let's trigger everybody's fight or flight response with some, loud, harsh Predator music, or whatever. I don't know.
See, in that respect, say what you want about Candle Cove, at least it showed some restraint when it came to some of the sound design. But like,
yeah.
and points to Candle Cove for during the actual like puppet segments, they used the Ben Hayward Candle Cove theme.
Oh yeah, I think there was a question about that, whether they were actually using that or not. But yeah,
it was the actual one.
Yeah, I mean, like in the past when we were first looking at it, I was like, "Is that the actual theme?" But
yeah, yeah. Well, it's been confirmed, and in fact,
cool.
If you go to the video link to it now on the guy's channel, it says the like official Candle Cove theme.
I bet he gets DMCA'd at some point. For his, your video has been claimed by the Sci-Fi Channel. Yeah.
No, this is another production where the music and the score are utterly forgettable, and there is nothing to it. It is just merely a tool just to move the scene along. And not even well at that part.
I remember seeing when the television, toward the end, when the television starts repeating itself and playing all these different clips and everything.
Yeah.
I basically, between the sounds and between the video stuff and between all this crazy, stuff going on, I think this is just basically like the Sci-Fi Channel dabbling maybe in YouTube poop. Like, like, is there an audience for a YouTube poop horror story, show? I don't know. But
it certainly wasn't a fantastic Conor McGregor YouTube poop.
Oy.
Would you call this a boner?
I'll never
David
get
gets
that
it.
boner.
Okay. Oh man. But yeah.
So we have hallway 3, which is scary guy behind a mirror. Well, except not that scary, just kind of unhinged guy. Then we get room 4.
By the way, the guy behind the mirror, again, I think that is a product of the fact that they sabotaged themselves by writing in the exit doors. They couldn't have anything behind that mirror that would make her exit the building. So it had to be just some guy laughing. They kind of wrote themselves into a corner.
Is it just capitalizing on, you guys trying to relate to female audiences? Remember that creepy dude on the bus? Yeah, here he is again.
Ooh.
That's what it felt like to me. I may be reading into it, but
that's fair.
What
That's
else
totally
could it
fair.
possibly be? Are we supposed to read into the deep symbolism of confronting your fear, and it's yourself? Here's a mirror, because that's just too stupid. So what the fuck were they trying to achieve?
It was. I will say though, it was more unnerving before. I like that it didn't turn into a jump scare, but there was at least a little bit of tension when you hear someone laughing. You see this hand coming around a mirror, and you know that she's got to approach it, but she like hesitates and she's just like standing there. And it doesn't. Whoever's back there doesn't come out at her. She has to go toward it, and it just turns out to be some really weird guy. But I at least give them props for like me going, oh, okay, well, what's gonna happen next? I mean, the payoff was ultimately just kind of a payoff. But now that you put it that way, Abysme, I'm thinking about it, going, I wonder.
Might be too much credit.
Well, yeah, all these rooms are very conscious choices of what they wanted to do. I just don't know what they're trying to do with any of them.
I mean, that guy may show up later in the season. I don't know.
We have several more episodes to figure that out.
I was hoping when she went around the mirror, I was hoping that the hands on either side of the mirror, I was hoping she'd get past it, and on the other side, they would just wrap around into other hands holding the other side. But, whatever.
I was hoping she was going to walk around the mirror and then accidentally, step off the porch and then, fall, where you have that little mini actual terror of, oh my god, I'm falling.
Right.
Spooky!
But, I don't know. So, yeah, the next room, I don't know. I don't even remember what the next room was. Was it the attic or something? Or
Attic with a big screen window.
the attic where they were like, isn't it scary to see, photoshopped images?
She's seeing the moment of her dad dying, I guess.
I don't know. It had the facial obscuration, whatever the fuck the word would be. It had the facial obscure stuff from the fucking Ring, and I'm like, okay.
But
that's fine.
I didn't understand it, because it's just like they obscured the face, and it's like, it's her dad.
Yeah.
It's her dad. It's straight up her dad.
Well,
why are we even pretending that this is something other than her dad?
Well, they're not pretending it's not her dad, I don't think. The thing I noticed earlier was that every time we go to that flashback where she's walking around to see that her dad is dead, you never see his face in those either.
Yeah.
So they're hiding something. I feel like they're saying, like, hey, we're hiding something. There's going to be some reveal about the face later, but we can't show you that now. From that moment in the flashback where she walked around him and looked at him while he was dead, looked at his corpse.
Well, I'm not going to keep watching the show, and I don't really care. But I'm gonna guess that you're reading too much into it, David.
Yeah. I have to be the bearer of bad news and say that in one of the previews they show his face all swollen up, so
okay, so they're just trying to avoid showing swollen face.
I don't know. I have to be the killjoy, I guess, but
that's okay. I mean, in the next room we get Plaster Dad.
Plaster Dad, yeah. I think I wrote in my notes here Olivier de Soggy Dad. But yeah. But yeah, and okay, is it just me, or is there absolutely no threat from this quote-unquote monster?
No, and I don't know what they're trying to achieve with this. Are they actually trying to make these rooms scary for the audience, or just mind fucks? Which one is it? Because I don't care anymore.
I wonder if he's going to grab her hand when she tries to touch the remote.
Yeah, really.
Yeah.
You know what's funny is that is such a typical haunted house thing to do, especially in like a thing where you're allowed to it's more interactive and you sign a waiver to go in where the actors are allowed to touch you. Usually they put you in a situation where you have to do something like that. So I'm like, yeah, he's gonna grab her, and basically you're getting what you paid for when you came into this haunted house. Also the fact that the guy in the wood mask pushed the other guy and then was like walking around other people all creepy. I'm like, yeah, again, if you had signed a waiver, this could be like a legitimate haunted house, and I kind of wish there had been that detail in there, like there was something you had to sign before you went in.
Right.
You could have factored into the plot later.
Well, that's the thing is this house is supposed to be metaphysical though,
well, yeah, but
it's got to pick a lane, and I see what you're saying, but even now I'm not sure that they've picked a lane. So yeah, why the fuck not have contracts?
They could have easily had a box of waivers attached to the front of the house with a little mail slot above it.
Yeah.
And you just fill it out and slide it in. They didn't have to show any people running the house. They didn't have to show anything. It would just be it would have added a little bit more credibility to the fact that people weren't leaving, when they were getting accosted. But,
Right. I mean, there's the idea that you could explain this away as some sort of weird avant-garde performance art haunted house, which is basically what it is anyway. But there's the notion that this has been around for a while, and yet people haven't talked about it. If you had at least changed one frame, you could have kept that frame in mind, it's some sort of weird, almost Banksy. It's like Banksy did a haunted house,
I think that the best way.
I wouldn't say Banksy.
No. I'm not saying I'm not saying that the house is if Banksy did a haunted house. I'm saying the idea that no one knows who designed it and it just showed up, and then there's still enough there that no one's gonna come by and immediately question it.
I was thinking in terms of aesthetic, because I'm just what the fuck? And I'm Luke
no, there's no way this is
Kara Walker, but I don't know about Banksy.
No. Yeah, I just wanted to be clear. I didn't mean Banksy in style. It was, we've all heard about Dismaland,
right?
Which is essentially his pop-up haunted house.
Oh man, but the father, when the father's there dead on the couch, and somebody explained to me why they kept the couch he died on in the modern day house, but the thing is,
it's a nice couch.
Yeah, when the
Very expensive.
when Dad Ghost, when Slimy Dad, Slime Daddy, grabs her and tries to hug her and shit. It's all I was thinking, and I don't know about you guys, but all I was thinking was, it's just her dad's ghost trying to hug his daughter who he loves. There's no fear, there's no scare, here.
It wasn't.
I don't care.
It wasn't scary. I was just like, I felt bad. I was like, oh, she's freaking out. But like, let Plaster Dad hug you.
Yeah.
Just let Plaster Dad hug it out.
He's been waiting here for years.
Well,
Just for you.
A year, I think. I think he's only been dead a year. But how do we feel about her kind of not even being scared by that? Because she's kind of like scared, but not.
She's more like grossed out, I think.
Even then, she's like, yeah, I do miss my dad. And hey, by the way, audience, I miss my dad. This is the point of the show, by the way. My dad's dead. I felt it was just hammering that home.
You think she would be freaking out more about the fact that they apparently have footage for their screens about her personal life.
Right.
And they're able to recreate rooms that are like her. I think they could have portrayed I think either the directing, I don't know if it's the directing or the acting on the part of the actress, but like there's no like what the fuck element to that. Like we're supposed to be like, oh God, what the fuck, but she's not portraying that. She should be actively like being like, what the fuck, like constantly.
The best acting in the entire episode was that girl who leaves in room 1 and says, no, fuck this. I'm out.
Yeah. Fuck this shit, I'm out.
The only relatable character who acts like a real human being.
What about the gal whose I presume friend SO got taken away by the woodman and left the blood trail, and she's like, fuck, and she's just out.
Yeah.
That's that's a realistic reaction.
Sure. So the people who leave and don't partake are the only real characters, and they're gone. And we're not left with them.
Yep.
And speaking of leaving the house, do we want to address the fact that the two female leads are out in the car and they go, oh gee, the guys must have left before us, even though we all came in the same fucking car and it's right here. Like, how did they leave before you? You're in the car. What do you think happened? Uber. Yeah, I get. Oh man, if they had just said, I wonder if they called an Uber, that would have erased the whole problem. But just the idea of maybe they left before us, I'm like, I don't know. That's kind of a stretch to assume that.
Yeah.
But I don't know.
I have a major question in terms of the adaptation. What are these people trying to prove? There's no $500 reward.
It's just fun for kids. Let's go there tonight, right now. Even though we're doing other stuff and we're tired, one of us just saw a commercial. Let's hop in the car exactly at this immediate moment and drive there. We're kooky.
Some of us are misanthropes and like to sit inside all day, but let's go out to a random place we've never been to.
Yeah. And one of us...
We love pop-up haunted houses.
Yeah.
Because today's kids definitely don't play video games or spend their time on the phone all the damn time. No, they go to random-ass locations. Everyone's an urban explorer, according to this show.
And none of them have seen any modern horror movies to know that you don't mess with this shit.
Yeah.
I saw a weird commercial that came in the middle of a broadcast and had all these random images. I'd be like, oh, wow, I know where we're not going. Anything to do with that. I think I saw that in a couple movies. So no, actually. No, thank you. But yeah. And I guess... Oh, go ahead.
The characters, all of them are just flat, very unconvincing and unrelatable, and seemingly without direct motive, and are kind of just along for the ride. And so our proxies into this, haunted, mostly supernatural house are just like, huh? Ew. Oh. It's like they're watching a fireworks commercial.
Yeah.
Can anybody here name more than one character on the show?
No. Yeah,
there's Margot / Marsha, and that's it.
DP?
No, Margot's all I got.
Yeah, so I didn't even know Margot until we were recording. When you said Margot, I was like, oh, that's her name? Okay.
Although they
Margot.
Margot.
haunted house version of Dad calls her Marcia, though, and the Woodman apparently whispered in her ear, "Welcome back, Marcia." So
no,
that's
not Marcia,
why, again,
Martian.
Martian, oh yeah. That's true.
My favorite Martian.
Yeah. But yeah, so I guess an alternate theory, I know that I said David S. Pumpkins was behind it, but maybe it was Jerasim? Because the house is apparently fireproof?
Yes.
Nothing will light up
print.
or start near it, so...
In very fine print on that one side, copper, plastic, and you. Very, very fine print. Also fireproof.
There's like a lot of fine print, and it says, "Why did I create a house that was fireproof?" Well,
let me tell you.
And for anybody who doesn't get that,
I'll be using you for haunted house.
yes, I will be.
Why did I buy the rights to No End House? Well.
Oh man, but yeah, for anybody who doesn't get that, go listen to Undercooked Analysis. But yeah,
I guarantee it. You will not understand it any better than we do.
No.
But yeah, so I guess that's the first episode of No End House.
I can't wait to not watch the rest of them.
Well, I'm gonna still complain to you, but
yeah, it doesn't come from a place of like hatred. It's just like, and it's not because the show was terrible. It's just so meh and so confused and really kind of a weird thing to watch. And for all the wrong reasons.
And I think that our biggest problem is that we have read the source material and we're going into an adaptation. And to anyone who hasn't, I guess I'll try to draw a comparison. Imagine going into like one of the Christopher Nolan Batman movies, and within the first 45 minutes, he's already met Robin, and he has a kid with Talia al Ghul, and like, so it's just so much is happening. And we're like, what the fuck? Why are you blowing everything? How can there be more at this point? And it's just very, very transparent that they don't really give a shit and they just want to write weird stuff, but they need a name that's big to lull people in.
The only
but I don't even think it's that. Like, I don't think No End House is a big name. Like, it's a weird thing that, in terms of like numbers, relatively few people actually know about. Like, it might be a big thing here and there on the internet, but still. Sorry, David, what were you going to say?
No, it's okay. I'm saying in like, even more so than Candle Cove, this is the very, very, very loosest definition of an adaptation, The only thing it keeps is the idea of a house that you have to get through several rooms. Each room is scarier than the last. Not a lot of the other elements of the source material are in there.
Not a lick of heroin.
well,
A lick of heroin.
I don't think it needs to. I don't even think it needs to be a faithful adaptation.
No, I'm not, and I'm not saying that either. I'm just saying, like, to call it an adaptation even feels a little ridiculous, because clearly, like, what they did is they it seems to me like the people who made it liked the premise of No End House and said, okay, let's take that premise and then do our own spin on, complete our own spin on it.
Here's go ahead.
It's the what would you do with a ring ring tape question, or what would you do with a Death Note, and those are perfectly fine things to have an adaptation of.
Right.
My feeling is that they found some creepy images and then just like blew all of the world building elements. Just like overlooked so many aspects of this that I am less willing to give it leeway in being its own thing.
Right.
Well, here's the thing. I mean, first of all, if you're licking heroin, you're doing it wrong. But I went into this thinking there are multiple No End houses. So I, went into this thinking the one from the story, is a different No End house, and that all is still canon, and that all still occurred.
Okay.
And now this is a different one that has popped up, and this is entirely different. So even removing that, I went into this thinking, okay, this is a different house from the story. because I knew it wouldn't be.
I wasn't expecting it to be the same house necessarily, because I knew they were going to do different things in every room, and I was kind of like, I was okay with that. I like the premise of No End House as a story.
Yeah, because the thing is, I went into it thinking that, and still, felt like it missed the mark in a lot of ways. So, even completely removing the original story and its content and what happened in the rooms and what did or didn't occur, completely removing the original story and saying, okay, that's its own thing that still happened. This is a different No End House. Even with that gone, I still feel like it missed the mark. But I think the question of why this show is adapting creepypasta, and who is this for, and why adapt the creepypastas if you're not really going to adapt them and things like that. I think,
well, that's my thought.
Yeah, the main thing I think is that the people who pitched
game theory.
Yeah, fuck you, game theory. Here's my game theory. Buy a loot box. What the fuck? Fuck you, you bastards. My main thing is this. I believe that the people who created the show and people who are running the show pitched Sci-Fi the idea of, there's this internet phenomena called creepypasta. Everybody's into it. Wouldn't you like to be the first station to run a show about creepypasta? Because this is a worldwide sensation that's just picking up steam. And the Sci-Fi Channel said, okay, sure. And so then they went and said, okay, go out and buy creepypastas that people, maybe will know. And, the showrunners went out to get creepypastas and just said, well, which ones? Well, whatever. It doesn't really matter. We're selling Sci-Fi the idea that they're buying into the next big trend. It doesn't really matter what the stories are or what we do with it, because we've made our sale to Sci-Fi. We already got the sale. So
here's another problem. I just confirmed it. Sci-Fi's target demographic is 18 to 49, which is enormous. And this show was written by people in their 30s, 40s, 50s, for what it feels like 14-year-olds. So it is this enormous mishmash of what are your priorities, how much of the envelope can you push, and who are you trying to get this out to? And I think that's one of the problems and why it's missing its mark, because creepypasta appeals to also a very large, a very broad demographic, but it depends on what type of story you're adapting. And they're trying to make it edgy, like, hey, everyone remembers college, right? That's the median age, I guess.
If you wanted to watch a show that feels like a good creepypasta show, just watch Are You Afraid of the Dark?
I'm sure you can find it on YouTube too. So
you totally could. That's the thing.
Oh yeah.
And the thing is, the stories. Some of the episodes are pretty clunky, but at least it's not. At least it knows what it's trying to do, and it's not shy about its. The fact that it was made in Canada in the '90s, it definitely shows. But at least it doesn't feel as forced.
Why?
I don't know.
How hard could it really have been to buy 6 stories, the rights to 6 stories, make an anthology, and release the first season, and then take time in between and do it again?
Yeah, Black Mirror.
Time and money.
Black Mirror is very popular. They could have just aped that, at least. I don't know.
Mm-hmm. Or if you're gonna do a series, take a series. Do 1999. They probably couldn't at this point, but that. There's your long form, emotional, child daddy problems series. Right. Why the fuck are you doing No End House?
Because as I said, I think it was just a random purchase of whatever they could get. Because as I said, they already made the deal with Sci-Fi, so who cares what stories they are? You got your show. So. I don't know.
I think that if you're looking for a good show that adapts creepypasta,
fucking hell.
The weird thing is the idea that the house is kind of taking on over time, not generic stuff, but this own girl's personal fears or personal tragedies or whatever, is I'm sitting there and I'm watching this. I'm going, I wrote that episode of Midnight Marinara. My Halloween episode was the idea that you went to a haunted house and somehow this house evoked your own personal tragedies back to you.
So we confirmed it here. You've heard it here first. No End House, Channel Zero, completely ripped off from Midnight Marinara. Abysme will be filing the lawsuit.
Yes.
Dead Palette will be the star witness. There's no response from Dead Palette.
I have no Pippi rejoinder.
Do you have long stocking?
I mean,
No Pippi rejoinder to that either.
I would love to get Brandon on the stand to testify in court, because it would just be like the best derailments ever, and the jury would just not understand what's happening, and opposing counsel would be very angry.
I would just start yelling racial epithets, and people would be like, "What are you doing? Why are you doing that?" And it's just like, I'm trying to get out of jury duty. But you're on the stand as a witness.
You should have done this a week ago at voir dire, idiot.
you scream out racial epithets, and it's like you're on trial for a hate crime. It's like, whoops.
Oh, sorry, I was just reading back my testimony.
Yeah, there you go. But
So
do we all know here that the third and fourth seasons have been announced? Is that
happening?
Oh no!
Yeah, one of them was SCP numbers.
the
Staircase.
Yeah, the third season is called Staircases, and people are presuming
just in staircase form.
Yeah, wouldn't that be cool? Just 6 episodes of somebody falling down the stairs as all the ghosts kind of just watch them go by. Like, well, fuck. I don't know.
Yes.
We're supposed to be doing some meaningful personal introspection shit, but I guess they're just gonna tumble down the stairs.
What was the other one again?
The other one is something about a cellar door, which I know is your favorite term,
Hidden
PP.
door.
Hidden door.
Called Hidden Door.
Okay.
There's a hidden door in my cellar or something like that is the original. It sounds like a no sleep story, but
It does.
Based
Well,
on the
no,
title.
it's not 17 words long, so I don't know if it can be.
there was a hidden cellar in my door. Now I wish I hadn't. But yeah. I mean, you end any sentence with that, and it's a no sleep story. But
There was a hidden cellar in my door. I opened the door, and he tried to sell me things.
there you go. Oh man.
My female Zumba teacher was wearing yoga pants and had a giant Fuda bulge, and I sucked her dick. I wish I hadn't.
Oh man.
All right, I have a question to pose here as a pseudo closer. Compared to the first episode of Candle Cove, is this better, worse? What do you think?
I haven't seen the first episode of Candle Cove. This was definitely better.
Yeah.
Believe it or not, he's right.
Yeah.
I actually enjoyed this more than the first episode of Candle Cove, because while these characters are very flat, Mike Painter in the first episode of Candle Cove makes me want to shoot somebody.
I think the first episode of Candle Cove. Oh, go ahead.
We said a bunch of negative shit. It wasn't bad. I didn't hate this.
No, me
I
neither.
am just kind of bored and uninterested, and it was weird.
It's a lot like,
weird and not the right ways.
Yeah, it's a lot like how we feel about the new It movie. You know, there's potential there, but man, you fucked up on some basic stuff. Sorry. Not interested.
No, you're wrong. Haven't you seen all the fan art? Fuck you. But here's the thing. I think Channel Zero, Candle Cove, the No End House has much better pacing, and it's much quicker, which is a relief. And I think that Channel Zero, Candle Cove should have started with Mike Painter. First scene would be him coming in out of the rain, and then he just stands there as in real time you watch Mike Painter dry. That would have been apropos for that show.
Yeah, I'm kind of with everybody else. I actually, I'm curious enough about. I'm not. Here's the thing. When I watched the first episode of Channel Zero, Candle Cove, I had no desire to watch the rest of it. I thought, oh, okay, we just saw the whole story about Candle Cove. It's over. There's a toothed child. I don't really care. This, at least, is trying to set itself up for a better overarching plot.
They only blew half the story in the first episode. So you can just watch 2.
Look, I don't know where it's gonna go from here, but I'm like there's just enough of me that's curious that goes, okay, maybe I would watch the rest of this. Do I really want to watch the rest of it that much? Not really,
Right.
but not compared to like Candle Cove, where I was just like, I'm done. I might look into it again later just to see what they do. I don't have very high expectations at all, but I think it, on a whole, so far, it's presenting itself better than Candle Cove did.
I'll definitely watch the rest of it, at least if for no other reason than to know what I'm talking about when I talk about the show. But
Well, tell you what, if you're gonna watch the rest of it, I'll watch the rest of it.
okay, it's a deal. It's like a suicide pact.
Yeah.
We're both gonna watch Channel Zero.
Slimy, what are we? Some side of Suicide Squad?
Oh, God damn it. But I guess I'll close it out before we get to our introductions. I'll close it out by saying it seems very much like, with a warning about cannibals, with prop plaster casts of people's faces and heads, with people being warped into another reality or another imaginary dimension or something like that. I will go on the record saying that, spoiler alert, the No-End House replaces you, and most likely she's trapped in a imaginary place while her, real form is taken over by somebody else or some other spirit.
While her real form is stumbling out of the house and throwing up.
Yes, exactly.
Think about
I would think that would be the best explanation. I really believe that the house is replacing people. It seems like that was heavily alluded to, but go ahead, I'm sorry.
Woodmasky says welcome back, so I'm gonna guess, I'm not gonna watch the show, but I'm gonna guess that she's been in the house for like most of her life, and she just has amnesia, and it's gonna be a lazy fucking ending. That's my guess.
I think both of you are overthinking that. I don't think they're going to explain shit.
That could be. You don't want to know how much I've overthought it.
Way worse than Twin Peaks.
Nah, Twin Peaks.
So you don't want to know how much I overthought it, because I was like, why have they shown orchids? They show orchids on the counter in a vase. They show a painting of orchids. They show an orchid animation in the opening. What's with this? What's the deal with orchids? So I'm like,
Orchid
on Google.
Is a symbol for her virginity and her innocence.
Aw, damn.
The No-End House.
There you go.
The orchid
Also,
is a
swimming in underwater in pools come up a lot, and the girl having water in her ear.
The orchid is a symbol of her being as single as a Pringle.
God damn it. I actually Googled it.
That line.
I Googled it, and I was looking at, you want to know about looking too far into things? I discovered that there are some orchids with certain toxins in them that you can be allergic to. So I thought, maybe the mother poisoned him with some of the orchids from her vase.
Maybe he's allergic to her because she's actually an orchid person.
That's true.
In the house.
He's orchid kin. Oh no.
Oh my God! Did we just invent another superhero or a supervillain? The orchidnism.
No, I was going to say the Orchid Man.
The Orchid Man. God damn it. Oh man. So let's do our fucking intros, and since David is new.
Wait, at this point, outroductions?
No, they're intros.
Outroductions.
Outroductions.
Good.
I played bass for the outroductions, but so David, why don't you introduce yourself?
I never played bass for the outroductions, but they did introduce. They did play before me. I was introduced by the outroductions.
God fucking damn it.
All right. Well, I'm going to introduce myself. For those of you who don't know me, I'm David King. I am. So many of the memes that have come up in this episode are originated from a show I happen to have started called Undercooked Analysis, where me, Dead Palette, and Alan Cheney get together and talk. And we have other guests as well. Kayla is a regular. Slimy here is a regular. We've had a Bisme on once, twice.
Now, are you saying a regular or irregular?
A regular.
Okay, because I was wondering how you'd know, but go ahead.
No, well, I mean, I don't have enough laxatives for everybody, so, I mean, if you were irregular, then I don't think I could take care of that. But anyway, we get together, we analyze and look at creepypasta colds generally, and we just generally kind of bullshit our way through, and then at the end decide, kind of try and give it as good a critique as we can give it. But more often than not, it gets buried with a bunch of dumb jokes, memes, and other some such. If you prefer a more stylistic and polished product, I also run Undercooked Analysis is a spinoff of the Midnight Marinera podcast, which will be making its return this October, which we adapt creepypasta, classic horror fiction, and other short stories of a horror nature into audio dramas, fully cast, sound effects, voice acting, the works.
All right.
There you go.
So, and going as usual in alphabetical order, Abysme, your outroduction.
My introduction. I'm Abysme, and I buy a loot box. No,
You buy a loot box? Okay.
Yeah, I buy loot boxes professionally. I ripped off David here with UCA by making Raw Dog Readings, which looks at much more less polished and ridiculous creepypasta and other stuff. And I did the same on Ray Gun Readers, which is my science fiction podcast. And when I'm not doing that, I'm making horror and science fiction music on my YouTube channel, /Abysme.
And that leaves second to last.
I'm Dead Palette. I write and narrate short horror stories. I just posted one nowish, about the time this is coming out, called Slobber. It's a sad story. It is a radically realistic story. I almost had a typo in this whole dramatic thing that's about sadness and loss, was almost called Sluber, because I'm an idiot. And I was making myself laugh with that, but no, it's Slobber. Sluber.
Hey, how did these guys get out of the house before us? Oh, they probably just called it Sluber.
Yeah, there you go. You guys call. Hello. But yeah. And
Get out of here, Sluber. No.
No?
I want to be included. God damn it, Sluber. And your perpetual state of having a stroke.
God. I'm not even introducing myself. That's it.